Yeah, just around the corner.
So, where are you from originally?
It's been a long night.
Back in 2020, when the world was still crawling through the pandemic, I started driving for Uber to make ends meet. I'd just lost my retail job, and I needed money fast. Driving seemed simple enough. Get the app, pick people up, drop them off, and try not to get rated 1 star by a drunk college kid. But night shifts, they change you. I drove the late slot 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. because it paid better. Those hours attract a special kind of passenger. The lonely, the drunk, the angry, people with stories you can read on their faces but never hear out loud. After 6 months, I thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday, around 1 a.m. The city was dead, quiet except for the faint hum of highway traffic. I was parked outside an old coffee shop that had gone out of business, waiting for the next ride. My car, a beat-up gray sedan, felt like my own little bubble of warmth in the cold urban dark. Then my phone buzzed. A new request. The name on the screen read, Mason. Pickup. Downtown. Drop-off. The Sycamores. A residential area I'd never heard of. Deep in the woods, almost 45 minutes away. That was a long drive and a good fare. I didn't think twice before hitting accept. When I pulled up, the street was empty except for one man standing under a street lamp. Mid-30s, beige jacket, dark slacks. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't checking the plate number, just standing perfectly still, staring at me. Most people fidget. They wave or step forward when you pull up. He didn't. He just stood there like he was waiting for me. Specifically, I unlocked the doors. He opened the back one, slid in, and shut it softly behind him. Mason? I asked, glancing at him through the mirror. Yeah. His voice was flat empty, like he was reading from a script. Cool. The Sycamores, right? Long drive tonight. Nothing. He didn't say a word after that. No small talk, no tired chuckle, not even a grunt. He just sat perfectly upright, hands deep in his jacket pockets. I started driving, expecting him to pull out his phone, text someone, do something. But every few seconds, I glanced in the mirror, and his eyes were fixed on the back of my head. He wasn't looking through me. He was watching me. It wasn't an angry glare. It was worse, completely emotionless. A calm, patient study. Like I was part of an experiment he'd already decided the outcome of. Visiting family? I asked, trying to break the tension. Just need a ride. Same tone. Dead quiet after that. We drove for half an hour through empty streets. Every time I peeked into the mirror, his posture hadn't changed, not once. He wasn't looking out the window. Not at the road. Not at his phone. Just at me. The silence grew so thick that the sound of my own breathing started to feel intrusive. My pulse was loud in my ears. Finally, the GPS told me to turn off the main highway onto a narrow, tree-lined road. The Sycamores. Streetlights were sparse, and the forest pressed close on both sides, swallowing what little light there was. The ride had gone from eerie to suffocating. When I finally reached his stop, the GPS said, "You have arrived." I pulled over in front of a large, 2-story colonial house, completely dark. No porch light, no cars, no signs of life. "Here we are," I said, forcing a smile. He didn't move. He just stared through the windshield at the unlit house. "This is it, right?" After a long pause, he unbuckled his seatbelt slowly. Click. "Yeah." He stepped out, turned toward the house, then stopped. But instead of walking to the door, he turned back toward me. In the mirror, under that pale yellow light, I saw him standing still again, watching my car. Not waving, not leaving, just watching. I wanted to gun it, but something in me said don't. I didn't want to look scared. So I drove off normally, turned the corner, and then pressed the gas. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like the steering wheel was vibrating. When I finally got home, I gave him a 4-star rating because giving less felt too personal and tried to shake it off. But 3 nights later, around 2 a.m., I got another request. Pickup, less than a mile from my apartment. Drop off. The small park across the street from my building. The passenger's name? Just M. No profile picture. Rating? A perfect 5. Something about that made my stomach turn. I stared at the request screen. My mind started piecing it together, Mason. M. The same pattern. A new account, perfect rating, no face. And now, right near my home. I hit cancel. Safety concern. My hands were shaking as I pulled into my parking spot. I couldn't stop replaying that night, his stare, the silence, the way he'd studied me like I was something to be understood. And now, it felt like he'd found me. That night, I didn't sleep. Every sound outside felt amplified. I kept the lights off and the curtains closed, afraid to see anything or anyone. The next morning, I called my friend Sarah. She's the logical type, a systems analyst who thinks everything has a rational explanation. When I told her the story, she stayed quiet for a while before saying, "You're tired. You're connecting dots that don't exist. Mason could have just been awkward. And M could be anyone. Uber has thousands of users in your area. But what if it was him?" I asked. She sighed. "If he wanted to hurt you, he had his chance that night. It's creepy, sure, but it's probably a coincidence. Just drive during the day for a while." I wanted to believe her. I really did. So I did what she said. I switched to daytime shifts, tried to laugh it off, filed the story away as the weirdest fare of my life. But a few days later, something happened that made me realize how wrong I was. It was Saturday afternoon. Bright sunlight spilled across the parking lot as I decided to give my car a deep clean, something I'd been putting off all week. After all those early shifts, the interior was a mess. Coffee cups, straw wrappers, old receipts. I was vacuuming the back seat, humming to distract myself from how quiet it was. Then, as I pushed the nozzle between the seat cushion and the backrest where all the loose change and crumbs gather, my fingers brushed against something hard. Small, smooth, plastic. I pulled it out. It was a tiny, black rectangle, about the size of a lighter, with a small grill on one end and an LCD screen on the other. I pressed the side button. The screen blinked to life, glowing faintly in the sunlight. One word appeared in cold, digital letters. My stomach dropped. It was a voice recorder, a professional-grade one. My hands went cold as I stared at it, trying to breathe through the sudden wave of panic. Mason. The silence. The staring. The way he hadn't moved the entire ride. He hadn't been awkward. He hadn't been nervous. He'd been recording me. I stumbled into my apartment with the device still in my hand. My pulse was thundering in my ears as I fumbled through a drawer for the right cable to connect it to my computer. When I finally did, only one audio file appeared on the screen. Track 001, MP 3:46 minutes, 12 seconds. The exact length of that ride. I hesitated before pressing play. The sound filled my apartment instantly, the hum of the car engine, the faint whir of the heater, the mechanical voice of the GPS. Then came my own voice. "All right, we're heading out toward the Sycamores. Long drive tonight. Hope you had a good one." Silence. Then his voice flat, detached. "Just need a ride." Hearing it again made my skin crawl. I listened through the long stretches of silence, each one heavier than the last. You could hear my nervous fidgeting, the creak of the steering wheel, the shallow breathing I hadn't realized I'd been doing. The recorder had captured everything. Finally, I scrubbed forward to the end of the file when we'd reached his stop. The emergency brake, my voice slightly tense. "Here we are. Seatbelt click. Door opens." My voice again. "This is it, right?" His quiet reply. "Yeah." Door closes. Then the engine noise fades as I drive away. And then, silence. But the recording kept going. I could hear faint night sounds, the breeze, the whisper of insects. For about 10 seconds, nothing. Then breathing. Notmina. Slow, deep. Coming from right next to the recorder. The sound of someone standing over it. A quiet, low exhale. Then, a small, dry laugh. Not loud, not mocking, just satisfied. And then, in that same emotionless, flat tone, a whisper so close to the mic it distorted slightly. "See you soon, driver." I jumped so hard that my chair slammed against the wall. The sound still echoed in my head, that whisper dripping with calm finality. He had left the recorder behind on purpose. He wanted me to find it. He wanted me to hear that. I sat frozen, staring at the paused waveform on the screen, unable to breathe. What was this? Some twisted psychological game? A warning? A trophy? Every answer I thought of only made it worse. I didn't call the police. How could I? What was I supposed to say? A creepy passenger left a recorder in my car and said he'd see me soon. They'd tell me to file a report and move on. But I knew what that voice meant. It wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. It was personal. That night, I barely slept. Every time a car passed outside my window, I froze. Every creak in the hallway made me check the peephole. And every time I looked at the reflection in the glass, I expected to see that beige jacket standing just beyond the light. Over the next few weeks, I changed everything. I stopped driving at night. I changed my phone number. Eventually, I moved apartments entirely, didn't even tell my friends which building. But no matter what I did, that sense of being watched never left. Sometimes, when I drive alone at night, even now, I catch myself checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. It's always empty. But for a split second, I still expect to see him there, sitting bolt upright, hands in his pockets, watching me. And when the road goes quiet, when the hum of the tires fades just enough, I can still hear that whisper replaying in my head. Soft, calm, and terrifyingly close. See you soon, driver. I used to drive for Uber Pool. The money wasn't great, but it kept my lights on. If you've never done it, it's basically carpooling for strangers, 2, sometimes 3 people, going in roughly the same direction. You pick them up, drop them off, and pray no one says anything weird. It was a Friday night around 11. My first pickup was a young woman named Lisa. She looked like she'd just survived a 10-hour exam mid-20s, pale, eyes heavy, clutching a textbook bag like it was the last thing keeping her together. The second she sat in the front seat, she let out this deep, exhausted sigh. I didn't blame her. The week had probably wrung her out. The app chimed and rerouted me to another pickup just a few blocks away. I told Lisa, "We've got one more passenger joining us." She gave a small nod without looking up, probably just wanting to be left alone. Fair enough. The second pickup was at a dim old apartment complex. My headlights caught a man standing near the curb, tall, broad, maybe in his mid-50s. Worn denim jacket, black briefcase, the kind of man who'd probably been up since sunrise. When he opened the back door, a faint odor drifted in cigarettes and something sharp, almost metallic. Not blood, exactly, but something industrial. It set off a quiet alarm in my gut. "Evening," he said, his voice deep, smooth, and unsettlingly polite. He set his briefcase down gently beside his feet. I tried to sound casual. "Welcome aboard, Garth. We'll drop off Lisa first, then you're headed out toward the suburbs." He smiled slightly. "Excellent. A shared journey. Good to be among company." The phrasing stuck with me. No one talks like that at 11 at night in an Uber pool. Most people grunt or nod. This guy sounded like he was giving a speech. The car went quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears after a while. In the mirror, I caught Lisa shifting uncomfortably. Her shoulders were stiff, eyes locked on the window. I could tell she wanted out. Then, Garth spoke again. "Young woman," he said suddenly, "if I may offer a bit of advice." Lisa hesitated. Sure? "You're holding your bag too loosely," he said, his voice calm but serious. "You let the strap hang off your shoulder like that, you're inviting trouble." Lisa blinked, startled. She pulled her bag close to her chest. "Oh, thanks, I guess." I jumped in, trying to break the tension. Yeah, rough city sometimes. Better safe than sorry. But Garth wasn't listening to me. His eyes were locked on her reflection in the window. "It's not just the external," he continued. "It's internal. The way you sit, the way your shoulders slump. That's when the doors are easiest to open." He paused. "I'm a locksmith by trade. I know about security. 90% of a break-in is the target, making it easy. The rest is just the right tools." Lisa's hands tightened around her bag. Her breathing had gone shallow. It wasn't a threat, but it felt like something intimate, invasive. Like he was reading her body language the way a thief studies a house before breaking in. I didn't say another word. I just drove faster. For the next 10 minutes, no one spoke. But Garth didn't stop watching. In the mirror, I saw his eyes tracking the motion of Lisa's hands. It wasn't lust. It was something colder, assessment. The way a craftsman studies his next project. When the GPS finally said, arriving at destination, I nearly sighed with relief. I pulled up to a brightly lit apartment complex and turned to Lisa. Here you go, I said, trying to sound upbeat. Thanks, she whispered, opening the door quickly. As she stepped out, Garth spoke again. His tone was quiet, almost reverent. Sleep well, young woman. And remember, a lock is only as strong as the hand that turns the key. Lisa didn't respond. She slammed the door and walked fast toward the building entrance without a single glance back. I pulled away, exhaling the tension out of my chest. I was glad to have her out of that car, but before I could drive more than 20 feet, Garth leaned forward. Driver, he said, would you mind pulling over a moment? Every instinct in me screamed no, but I was still trying to be professional. Sure, I said, pulling into an empty space. Everything okay? Perfectly fine, he said. I just think I may have left a small tool behind. My mistake. I watched him carefully in the mirror. He didn't open the door. Instead, he reached forward, his big hand sliding over the center console, reaching toward the dashboard on the passenger side, right below the windshield. He fumbled there a second, then pulled back. Never mind, he said lightly. It must be in the briefcase. My apologies. Something about it didn't sit right. Why stop the car just to poke around the dash? But I said nothing. The rest of the ride was quiet, almost peaceful. I kept glancing toward that side of the dash, though, and that's when I saw it. A small, perfectly cut piece of paper sat tucked into the little cubby where I kept my registration. The same spot Garth had reached toward. Garth, I said cautiously. Did you leave this here? He didn't answer. I picked it up between two fingers. It was a neat list, written in elegant, flowing cursive, like someone who'd spent years practicing their signature. 2215, 789 Sycamore Avenue. Rear window latch, easy. 2245, 1045 Beacon St. Patio door bolt. Lose. 2310, 412. Elm Doctor, entry door, deadbolt failure, Old Yale model. 05, 840 University CT. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. The last address, 840 University CT, was Lisa's building, the one I'd just dropped her off at, and the time, 05, less than an hour from now. My chest tightened. I looked up into the mirror, and there he was, sitting perfectly still, eyes straight ahead, with the faintest hint of a smile on his lips. He wasn't looking at me. He was waiting. That's when it clicked. He hadn't reached forward to grab a tool. He'd planted this note. Not for me, for her. He wanted me to find it, to be part of it. The other times, 10, 15, 10, 45, 11:10, they weren't random. They were timestamps, break-ins, and Lisa's address was next. My pulse thundered in my ears. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, every muscle in my body telling me to pull over and throw this man out of my car. But my mind was spinning if I did. What would happen next? Would he just walk there instead? Then, in that same calm voice, Garth spoke. "Oh, driver," he said softly. "You are clever, aren't you? I can tell you figured it out." "Oh, driver," Garth said softly, almost admiringly. "You're clever, aren't you? I can tell you figured it out." My throat tightened. The car felt smaller, like the air had thickened between us. I didn't answer. I just kept my eyes locked on the road ahead. My hands were trembling against the steering wheel. Garth sighed, a deep, theatrical breath. "There's no need to look so frightened," he said, almost pitying. "You'd be amazed how many people would drive right past the truth. But not you. You noticed." He spoke with this unnerving calm, not smug, just detached, like he was explaining the rules of a game that only he understood. "You see," he continued, "locks are fascinating things. They exist to make people feel safe. But really, they only keep honest people honest. The rest of us, we know where to press." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. "Why leave this?" I managed to whisper. "Why give me the list?" It chuckled quietly. "Because I like the art of it. The tension. The performance. I like knowing that somewhere, right now, a stranger is holding a piece of my night. A witness who can't quite decide what's real." He paused. "And maybe I wanted to give the little mouse a chance." I froze. "The mouse?" The young woman, he said matter-of-factly. Lisa. I told her she looked tired, vulnerable. I didn't take her purse. I didn't follow her. I left her the clue. The crevice riddle, if you will. Now it's up to you, driver. Do you warn her? Do you call the police? Or do you convince yourself it's just some eccentric man talking nonsense in your car? He was smiling now. I could hear it in his voice, a smile of someone who'd rehearsed this exact moment. He'd done this before, maybe dozens of times. I pulled over abruptly, my tires squealing against the curb. You need to get out of my car, I said. My voice cracked halfway through the sentence, but I didn't care. Garth didn't flinch. Patience, driver. We're almost at my stop, and think if you throw me out here, I can be back at 840 University Court in 20 minutes. But if you take me all the way to my destination, it'll take me an extra 15. He was timing it. He had calculated the entire route down to the minute. My pulse spiked. I had maybe 40 minutes before Lisa's address. Her home became his final destination. I wanted to call the police right there, but what would I even say? That a polite locksmith had handed me a handwritten list of burglary times and addresses. By the time a dispatcher believed me, it would be too late. So, I drove. I didn't speak another word. Every second that passed felt like another nail in a coffin I couldn't see. Finally, we reached his destination, an industrial park at the edge of town. Empty warehouses. No lights. Just long rows of concrete buildings and flickering street lamps. Here we are, I said, gripping my phone, my thumb hovering over the 911 button. End of the line. Garth opened the door slowly. The night air was cold and still. He stepped out, straightened his jacket, and leaned down so his face hovered in the open door's frame. A final bit of wisdom, driver, he said quietly. The true artist leaves a signature, not a trail. You have 40 minutes. Choose wisely. Then he smiled that same calm, satisfied smile and added, Your rating depends on it. He shut the door gently and walked away, not toward any building, but down the dark sidewalk until he disappeared into the shadows. I didn't move. My heart was slamming in my chest, my mouth dry. Then I floored it, spinning the car in a hard U-turn and tearing back the way we'd come. The digital clock on the dash read 11:25 p.m. I had 40 minutes. I called my girlfriend, Maria, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. She answered immediately. Hey, you done for the night? No, I said breathless. Maria, listen. I just dropped off a guy. I think he's a burglar, maybe worse. He gave me a note with addresses he's broken into tonight. The last one is that girl's apartment, the one I dropped off earlier. He's going there at midnight. I'm going back. There was silence. Then Maria's voice rose into a panicked scream. Are you out of your mind? Call the police. You're not a cop. You're going to get yourself killed. I can't explain right now, I snapped. If I call, they'll ask for proof. Just listen. Call 911 for me. Tell them there's a domestic disturbance. Make it sound urgent. Big guy in a denim jacket. They'll send someone faster. Wait, she started, but I hung up. I couldn't lose time. The city lights blurred past as I sped through the streets. The dashboard clock ticked over to 11:55. My hands were slick with sweat. Every intersection felt like an eternity. By 12:02, I was pulling onto University Court. Lisa's complex was quiet, just a few porch lights, a distant hum of a TV somewhere. No cops yet. I parked across the street, jumped out, and ran to the entrance. The front door was locked, of course. Card swipe only. I looked at my watch. 12:03. 2 minutes. There had to be a buzzer system. I scanned the directory until I found it. El Mayor, Ep 204. I started mashing the buzzer. Nothing. I hit it again. Then again. Desperate, I started pressing every button on the panel. 101, 302, 204 again. I needed noise, commotion, attention. After 20 seconds of chaotic buzzing, a voice finally came through the intercom. Who is this? It's midnight. Emergency, I shouted. You need to tell El Meyer in 204. Her ex is coming. He's dangerous. Police are on their way. Static. Then silence. That's when I saw movement. From the far corner of the building, a tall shape emerged from the shadows. The same denim jacket. The same deliberate stride. Garth. He stopped when he saw me. His face was faintly illuminated by the streetlight, expressionless, except for his eyes. He didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed. like I'd ruined something beautiful. I pointed at him and shouted, "He's here! That's him! The police are coming!" He didn't run. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching me with that cold, calm expression. Then, in the distance, I heard the faint wail of a siren. Garth's jaw twitched. He gave me one sharp nod, not a threat, but a promise. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing behind the corner like smoke fading into the night. By the time the squad car arrived, lights flashing, he was gone. I gave the cops the whole story, the note, the ride, everything. They looked skeptical, but they took the paper and wrote up a report. One officer went to check on Lisa, who appeared in her window looking terrified and confused. They never contacted me again. Maybe they didn't find him. Maybe they didn't even believe me. But that night stuck with me. The smell of metal and cigarettes. The neat handwriting. The way he smiled when he said, "Choose wisely." When I got home, Maria was waiting by the door, eyes red from crying. She hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. I told her everything, every detail. She listened, shaking her head, whispering over and over, "You could have died." Maybe she was right. It's been 2 years since that night. I still drive, but never Uber Pool. Never again. Too many strangers. Too many faces that could be smiling at you while they plan something you can't imagine. Sometimes, when I clean out the car, I catch myself glancing at that little cubby in the dash, the same spot he reached into. And for just a split second, I swear, I can hear him laughing softly, somewhere in the dark. A quiet, satisfied laugh. The kind an artist makes when his masterpiece almost came to life. It was around 3:30 inches the morning, that dead hour when the city feels like it's given up pretending to be alive. The rain had been falling for hours, not a storm, not a drizzle, just that constant, steady kind that soaks into your bones and makes the streets shimmer under the jaundiced glow of streetlights. I was driving through the quiet, upper-class district, the kind of place where every house looks like a magazine cover, and every shadow feels like it's watching you. The Uber app chimed, cutting through the rain's dull rhythm. Pickup, 8 minutes away. Destination, the Silver Spoon Diner. Short ride, easy cash. I almost didn't accept when I saw the rating, 4.1. Low enough to make you wonder why. No profile photo. Just the letter N, M. But it was late. I was exhausted, and something about the emptiness of the streets made me crave one last human interaction before heading home. I hit accept. When I pulled up to the address, it wasn't some average apartment building. It was a sleek, modern condo tower with a marble lobby that reflected the rain light like a mirror. The pickup point was the service entrance, tucked under an overhang. A single man stood there, tall, mid-40s, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. He didn't look drunk or tired, just still, impossibly still, like he'd been standing there for hours. He stepped into the car with mechanical precision, closing the door quietly behind him. Even through the rearview mirror, the sight of him unsettled me. His face was pale, sharp features perfectly symmetrical. Rain slid off his suit like oil on glass. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound casual. "Headed to the Silver Spoon, right?" He nodded once. "Yes, driver, thank you. Him." His voice was deep, the kind of voice that belonged behind a lectern, not in the back of a Toyota at 3 in the morning. Too calm, too deliberate. We started off in silence. The rain filled the space between us. I caught glimpses of him in the mirror, not moving, not even blinking. His eyes were open but empty, staring straight ahead at the back of my seat. It reminded me of mannequins in department stores, those lifeless eyes pretending to look alive. I tried to shake the feeling, focused on the road, but a few minutes later, I realized something strange. His breathing hadn't changed once since he got in. No sighs, no shifting. No signs of life at all, just that eerie, still presence behind me. Then, as we neared the diner, I stopped at a long red light. The world outside was silent, except for the wipers and the soft hiss of rain. That's when he made a sound, a long, drawn-out gasp, like a drowning man breaking the surface for air. Then, his head slowly tilted sideways until it rested against the window. His eyes closed. He was asleep, not dozing off, not nodding. One moment, awake. The next, completely gone, like someone had flipped a switch. The diner was 2 blocks away. I drove the rest of the way in silence, every nerve in my body screaming that something was wrong. When I parked under the neon glow of the Silver Spoon sign, I turned and called out softly, "Sir, we're here." "Nothing." "Sir?" Louder this time. Still nothing. His head stayed against the window, breath fogging the glass in slow, steady intervals. Great. Another passed out passenger. Happens all the time, but not like this. Not with someone who looked carved out of marble 10 minutes ago. I turned up the radio, hoping the noise might wake him. The sound filled the cabin, sharp and sudden. He stirred, then his eyes snapped open. Not lazily, not confused, but instantly, like someone rebooting from sleep mode. His gaze was razor sharp now, alert, like he'd never been asleep at all. I froze. "Oh, my apologies," he said smoothly, straightening his tie. "I must have drifted off." He pulled a crisp 50 from his wallet and handed it to me. "Keep the change, and thank you for your patience." Before I could respond, he was out of the car, stepping into the rain without hesitation, heading for the diner's glowing entrance. I watched him disappear inside, or so I thought. As I started to pull away, my phone buzzed with a notification. It wasn't a rating. It was a message. N. "Driver, I need another ride. Immediately. Same destination. I need to make sure I'm still awake." My stomach dropped. Before I could even process the words, the app chimed again. New ride request. Pickup, the Silver Spoon Diner. Destination, the same condo tower. He'd rebooked. I looked up, and through the rain-smeared diner window, I saw him standing just inside the glass vestibule. He hadn't gone inside at all. He was watching me, waiting, phone in hand. That single sentence, "I need to make sure I'm still awake," looped in my mind like a broken record. I thought about canceling, just driving off. But what if he requested another driver? What if someone else ended up trapped in this same bizarre ritual? I accepted. When he climbed back into the car, his hair was damp, his breathing heavy. The immaculate calm was gone. Something was different now, frantic, desperate. "Thank you, driver," he said softly. "Please, just do what you did before. Drive the exact same route, same speed. Stop at the light. But this time, don't let me fall asleep." His voice trembled on that last word. I glanced back, uneasy. "Sir, are you okay? You said you needed to stay awake. Why?" He pressed a shaking hand against the window. "Because if I fall asleep, he wakes up." He looked at me then, eyes wide, filled with pure terror. And he doesn't like the light. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. His words were too deliberate, too sincere to be drunken nonsense. There was fear in his voice, real fear. But also, something else underneath it. Resignation. I drove on, the rain getting heavier, streetlights flashing through the fogged windshield. "Who's he?" I asked quietly. "You mean like another person?" He shook his head. Fast. "No, not another person. Not even another mind. It's something else. A different awareness. When I'm tired, he takes over. I can feel him watching, waiting. That's why I take these rides to test myself, to see if I can make it home before he takes control." The light ahead turned red. I realized with a sinking dread it was the same intersection as before, the same one where he'd fallen asleep. "Sir," I whispered, "we're coming up on that same light." "Don't stop," his voice cracked. "Please don't stop the car." "I can't," I said. "There's cross traffic." The car rolled to a stop. His eyes fluttered, his body going rigid. "Don't. Let him," he whispered, voice fading. Then silence. His breathing steadied. His head slumped back against the window. And in that instant, I knew he was gone. The light turned green. I drove on, gripping the wheel tight enough to make my knuckles ache. My pulse thudded in my ears, louder than the rain outside. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel it, a shift in the air, a presence heavier than before. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was awareness, the kind that stares back when you think you're alone. When I finally glanced at the mirror, I almost slammed the brakes. He was sitting upright again, but it wasn't the same man. The difference was subtle, but unmistakable. His posture was too precise, his eyes too calm, and the faint trace of fear that had lived in his expression before, gone, completely. I swallowed hard. "Sir, are you awake?" The voice that answered was the same pitch, the same timbre, but not the same soul. The accounts needed to be cleansed, he said, his tone flat, clinical. Waste cannot persist. Oh. Every word landed like a stone dropped into water, no emotion, just deliberate, heavy finality. I'm sorry, I said, my throat tightening. He tilted his head slightly, and for the first time, I saw something in his reflection that didn't feel human, something hollow and vast behind those eyes. He hoards, he said, referring to the other one, the man I'd first picked up. He clings to the unnecessary. I eliminate. I refine. Endly Fordic. His calmness was more terrifying than any outburst could have been. So you take over, I whispered. When he sleeps. He smiled just a small curl of his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. The driver is an anchor. The motion. It stabilizes the transition. He rides to prove he's still in control. But every test he fails brings me closer. He leaned forward slightly. Closer to permanence. The way he said that word permanence made my stomach drop. This wasn't some psychotic break. This felt ancient, ritualistic, like something was using this man's body to step into our world, and each night's ride was part of the exchange. My voice came out quieter than I meant it to. Why the light? Why do you hate it? That smile again, sharper this time, because light reveals the flaw. The latch left undone, the crack in the door, the weakness that allows things to escape. He needs the light to feel safe, but I thrive in what he fears. Then, slowly, his hand lifted. He reached up and flicked off the dome light. The interior fell into shadow, the only illumination coming from the faint orange of streetlights passing overhead. My breath hitched. He was calm. Again, too calm. His reflection in the mirror was just two dark orbs staring back at me. Driver, he said softly, almost conversationally. Take the long way home. Past the waterfront. I didn't respond. My pulse was hammering. The app showed we were only a minute from his condo. If I passed it, I'd be heading into the empty industrial district by the docks, the part of town that didn't wake up until daylight. He didn't move, but I could feel his eyes on the back of my neck. So I kept driving. The rain intensified, streaking across the windshield in silver rivers. Every passing block seemed darker, quieter, emptier. I knew I needed to think fast. If I made it to the docks, I had no idea what would happen, but it wouldn't end well. Then I remembered my friend Eric, the night owl programmer, who'd helped me out during more than one graveyard shift. I hit the Bluetooth button and called him, pretending it was casual. He picked up on the second ring. Yo, man, you still out driving? Yeah, I said quickly, forcing my voice steady. Got this guy in a suit. Wants me to take him down to the docks. Something about finishing his project. You remember that time you had to erase all that data overnight? The one that freaked you out? I emphasized the word erase. Eric paused, instantly catching the tone. Oh yeah, he said slowly. That was brutal. Had to wipe everything clean. Couldn't leave a single trace. The final stage is always the hardest, right? The man in the back seat shifted slightly. Completion brings peace, he murmured approvingly. I realized he thought Eric was part of his ritual. Yeah, I said, trying to sound calm. Peace. Eric kept talking, his voice even, but deliberate. So, are you still by the docks? The old shipyard one? The one that's totally deserted now, no lights, no security cameras, no turnarounds? I caught the message. Eric knew something was wrong, and he was trying to get me to safety, to anchor me with his words. Yeah, I said softly. That's the one. Then you remember the safety protocol, right? Eric's tone shifted slightly from casual to calculated. You told me once the car won't move if the gear's in park. I froze for half a second. Then it hit me. The code. He was giving me a plan. The thing in the back seat spoke again, low and dangerous. Driver, end your conversation. The conclusion is near. I hung up immediately, pretending to obey. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Only one block to the waterfront now. I had to act fast. I slammed the brakes. The seatbelt locked. The car jolted. Behind me, I heard him hiss, not yell, but an inhuman sound, like air escaping from a broken valve. What are you doing? He demanded. Sorry, I said quickly. Animal in the road. As he leaned forward slightly, I threw the car into park and hit the dome light. The small cabin flooded with white light. The reaction was immediate and horrifying. He screamed, not like a man startled or angry, but like something ancient and wounded. He clawed at the air, shielding his face from the light. his body convulsing as if the illumination itself was poison. "No, the light," he howled. The smooth, composed voice was gone, replaced by a guttural, desperate tone. And then, as suddenly as it began, he went still. His breathing slowed. The tension in his face melted away. When he opened his eyes again, they were different. Human again. Confused. Terrified. What happened?" he stammered. "Why are we stopped?" He looked around, realizing where we were, the desolate stretch by the docks, dark water reflecting the few remaining streetlights. "Sir," I said quietly, "you fell asleep again. I couldn't finish the sentence. His expression crumpled with horror. "Oh God, take me home. Please, now." I didn't wait for another word. I put the car in drive and sped away from the docks, headlights slicing through the rain. Neither of us spoke. When I finally stopped in front of his condo, he didn't say a thing. He just handed me another 50, hands trembling, and walked into the building without looking back. That was the last ride I ever took at night. I don't know what that man was fighting inside himself, whether it was madness, possession, or something that lives in the cracks between the two. But I do know this. There was something real in that car with me. Something that feared the light, but thrived in the dark. Something that needed a sleeping mind to exist. And sometimes, when I'm driving alone, and the rain starts to fall, I still catch myself checking the dome light, just to make sure it still works. Because part of me wonders if that night wasn't about him at all. Maybe he wasn't the one being tested. Maybe the ride was mine.